Hello everyone, I am Julina BEGASO, BSED English 3A, and welcome to English 116 or Campus Journalism class. Today I will going to discuss to you the topic in Module 2, Lesson 4, entitled The Duties and Responsibilities of Publication Staff. But before that, let's answer first the pre-activity. Pre-activity. So, in this activity, you need to arrange the scrambled words in order to get the answer. So, are you ready? If yes, let's start. Answers. So, thank you for answering, guys. So, now let's proceed to our main discussion. Lesson 4. Duties and Responsibilities of Publication Staff. A journalist is a person who practices journalism, the gathering and dissemination of information about current issues. So, the key objectives of a journalist is to gather information, to write news pieces, and to present the news in an honest and balanced manner. Typically, a journalist works in an office or in newsrooms or in school or campuses, which they call it a student journalist. So, in every schools or universities, there were always an organizations like student publications, which made up by every student who had a prior knowledge and skills related to the organizations that they had joined in. In our university here in Kapsamin, there is also an organization that publishes different literary works. This organization is called the Quest Publications, which made up by the editorial boards who collaborates with one another to produce or publish meaningful works. Each member of the editorial boards or publication staff have their own duties and responsibilities that they need to perform or accomplish. So, in relation with this, I'll going to discuss to you the different duties and responsibilities of a publication staff. So, to start with, let's start first with a chief editor. Chief editor. The chief editor supervises the editorial staff of the paper, writes the editorials of the organ after consultation with the members of the editorial staff, edits all articles preparatory to submission of the same to the advisor for final editing and approval for publication, supervises the preparation of the layout, the mailing of the paper and its pagination in cooperation with the managing editor and layout artist, causes the accomplishment of all assignments properly and on time, acts as the liaison officer between the editorial staff and the advisor, and calls meetings of the staff in consultation with the advisor. So, chief editor or editor-in-chief is the key head who ensures the consistency and the continuity of the magazines or newspapers. He or she is the one who supervises the editorial staff of the paper and is in charge in overseeing all the departments or the sections editors and has the final say in what to get published and serve as the publication representative. So, let's proceed to the associate editor. So, what are the duties and responsibilities of an associate editor? Associate editor. The associate editor edits the articles in cooperation with the chief editor, writes editorials of the organ when requested, prepares assignments of section editors in consultation with the chief editor, and cooperates in the preparation of the layout of the paper and paging of the same with the editor-in-chief and the managing editor. So, the primary role of an associate editor is to ensure that subordinate submits high-quality contents. He or she reviews and edits copies, set deadlines, and supervises the production details of magazines, newspapers, books, catalogs, or academic journals. He or she may also be delegated to write the editorials of the organ and edits articles in cooperation with the chief editor. So, let's proceed to the managing editor. So, what are the duties and responsibilities of a managing editor? Managing editor. The managing editor acts as the hand of the board and brings articles to the press for typesetting. As such, he or she also checks articles for typographical errors, prepares the layout of the paper, and paging of the same in consultation with the chief editor. Finally, he or she proofreads gallifroofs before these are finally approved by the chief editor, then by the advisor for printing. So, acting as the hand of the board, the managing editor brings the articles to the press for typesetting. He or she also sorts out the contents of the materials to be printed and rewrites the articles to ensure that they will fit into the assigned space, improving the language and giving appropriate and attractive headlines that will catch the attentions of the viewers or readers. So, let's proceed to the circulation manager. So, what are the duties and responsibilities of a circulation manager? Circulation manager. The circulation manager is assigned in ensuring the release and distribution of the paper. He or she also guarantees the smooth of the passing of articles from reporters to section editors. Lastly, he or she is assigned to oversee the flow of processes in crafting the paper. So, circulation manager is responsible for the development and operations of the circulation plans of the newspapers, books, magazines, or academic journals, and etc. He or she is also responsible for maintaining the smooth workflow of passing the articles from the reporters to the section editors, and is responsible for overseeing the distribution channels to ensure efficient operations and accurate record keeping. So let's proceed to the section editors. So the first one is the news editors. News editor. The news editor was assigned as the reporter to cover events relevant to the school activities. He or she writes news articles on assignment from the chief editor or through his or her own initiative in consultation with the latter. However, his or her primordial job is to edit all news articles submitted by the writers preparatory to submission of the same to the chief editor, then to the advisor of English section. So, the primary job of a news editor is to edit all the news articles submitted by the reporters preparatory to the submission to the chief editor and to the advisor. Every time that there has an activity or event in school, the news editor assigns the reporters to cover the events or activities that happen in their school or universities. Sometimes he or she writes news articles on assignment from the chief editor or through his or her own initiative. So next is the Filipino editor. So what are the duties and responsibilities of a Filipino editor? Filipino editor. The prime job of the Filipino editor is to write the editorial of the Filipino section. He or she also edits all articles preparatory to submission of the same to the Filipino advisor for final editing and for publication. Sometimes he or she causes the submission of all Filipino articles properly and timely. Lastly, he or she may likewise act as a liaison officer between the Filipino staff and the chief editor. So, the Filipino editor is an optional function or position because his or her prime job is to edit and rewrite all articles of the Filipino section only. Every time that there has an event in school or universities related to Filipino, just like Linggo ng Wika, the Filipino editor writes an article about this. And every time that there are writings that are from Filipino section, the Filipino editor edits and submits it to the Filipino advisor for final editing and for publication. Lastly, he acts as the liaison between the Filipino staff and to the chief editor. So, let's proceed to the feature editors. So, what are the duties and responsibilities of the feature editors? Feature editor. The feature editor gives out assignment to feature writers. He or she then receives and edits feature articles preparatory to the submission of the same to the chief editor. Sometimes he or she writes regular articles or column. So, primarily, the feature editor is the one who gives out assignment to the feature writers and receives and reads feature articles for editing and for submission to the chief editor. So, let's proceed to the exchange editor. So, what are the duties and responsibilities of an exchange editor? Exchange editor. The exchange editor makes up a list of school papers sent by other schools. He or she is designated to mail copies of own paper to these schools as he or she also files their paper on a bulletin board or display them on a newspaper wall. He or she keeps files of school information such as class lists and lists of homeroom advisors, faculty and staff members. Exchange editor is an optional function because there are times that the function of an exchange editor are accomplished by the circulation manager. Nevertheless, exchange editor also makes up a list of school papers sent by other schools and files their papers on a bulletin board or display on a newspaper rack for record keeping. So, let's proceed to the layout section editor. So, what are the duties and responsibilities of a layout section editor? Layout section editors. The layout section editors are assigned to cause the assignment of the school official's photographer to take pictures on school activities for the month or for a specified time. They prepare pictorial articles of the organ in consultation with the managing editor and chief editor. Sometimes their job is to write the captions of pictures utilized by the paper in cooperation with the chief editor. So, primarily, layout section editor is the one who is responsible in assigning the school's official photographer to take pictures and every activities happened in their schools or universities for documentation. Lastly, layout section editors writes the caption of every pictures utilized by the papers in cooperation with the chief editor. So, let's proceed to the layout artist. So, what are the duties and responsibilities of a layout artist? Layout artist. The layout artists take charge of designing and formatting of all pages in the paper. As such, they label or properly identify all pictures made available for publication. It is suggested that they write using a pencil at the back of every picture of the event to which a particular picture refers. They likewise help in the preparation of the layout of pictorial stories and makes illustration for feature articles. So, layout artist is responsible for the overall visual looks of the publication. So, he or she arranges text and images to create a pleasing layout for the readers. So, a good layout artist must be a computer literate and have the knowledge to do editing and layouting. So, the last but not the least is the reporters. So, what are the duties and responsibilities of a reporters? The reporters. The reporters secure the cold and raw facts of an assigned event and write articles out of the same. Moreover, they receive assignments from the section editors or board of editors and then accomplish the same properly and timely. So, the works of a reporter is to collect and analyze information about the newsworthy events, to write stories for publications or broadcast. They secure cold and raw facts of an assigned events and write articles as an assignment by the section editors or by the boards of editors. So, the reporters should be sincere in each and every task of reporting. They should do what the journalistic ethics allows them to do. So they must be free from any biased information, and the information provided in the report must be valid and reliable, and it should be understandable in order to catch the attention of the audience. So that's all, guys. Thank you for listening. I hope that you have learned from my discussion. Thank you and stay safe. God bless everyone. Application. Evaluation. Direction. Write T if the statement is true and F if the statement is false. And kindly send your answers on my FB account. Thank you.